This is Felt Recoil.
Welcome to the Felt Recoil podcast. My name is Kris. Across from me, my counterpart. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well.
Remind me of your name.
I think it's still Patrick.
I'm terrible with names, buddy. Give me another couple years, I'll get it. Welcome to the program. We got a lot going on this week. We're excited to share with you. I sold a minivan to a guy, so my life is complete. I can die happy. And then I also got to shoot the H9. That's what it was. That was it. So that was cool. And then we're going to, kind of get into the obvious, I guess. We're going to talk about the school shooting in Florida. And I think I have a very sound theory as to why the world will never be able to ban guns. It will never happen. Okay? We'll get to all of that and more. But first, let's talk about this week's charity of choice. It is the GoFundMe account set up for the Stoneman Douglas victims by Broward County Public Schools. It is posted to facebook.com/feltrecoilshow. They're still shy of the goal they'd like to reach in the next few days, but this is money that will be used to provide relief and financial support to the victims and the families of the shooting. These are 17 children died, 14 children wounded. Conspiracy theories aside, there are suffering people down there that need some help. So if you'll visit us at facebook.com/feltrecoilshow, you can click over to the GoFundMe page and donate, please, and thank you. Okay, Hulon, do you give any credence to the conspiracies we're seeing about these crisis actors?
I don't know. I think that's a tough one.
Why is that a tough one?
There's some pretty convincing photos out there of this one kid that's like supposedly in California.
Right.
When something's going on. Now he's in Florida.
So he's in California and on the news.
How do you prove or disprove it, though?
Well, both could be true, though. I mean, it's just coincidental. The thing that I wondered about is the fact that in one of the instances he is rehearsing lines. Well, not even rehearsing. He's kind of repeating his lines over and over, and he seems really nervous and all that. But
he's almost repeating it until he gets it just right.
Right, exactly. It's like he's looking for the inflection and the tone.
Much like this podcast.
Very much so. We do this 6 times each week.
Yep.
And so anyway, it's a little sketchy, but we'll get into it deeper. But I think there's a bigger point to make about it all that doesn't, kind of the point about that kid is to believe that he's a crisis actor is to believe that it never happened. And judging by the video I was watching today coming out of the White House of their listening session, those are some good actors in there if those people are faking their grief. I don't believe they are. So that's just one guy's opinion. Okay, funny thing, we had a beat-up minivan. It looked nice, but we bought a new family car, and so I had to convince my wife that we would sell the minivan. And I don't know anything about cars. I've never made that clear.
If anyone has ever listened to this podcast before,
it's pretty clear.
They should already know that.
So last year, we replaced the radiator, the transmission, and a bunch of other crap that I don't know how to pronounce, to the tune of, I think we were into it about $5,000-ish last year alone, a car that's paid off. And then, so we started talking. I said, look, I think we should be done dumping money into this thing. Because every time we'd take it in, a mechanic would go, look, man, another $1,000 and this car's going to run you forever. We actually took it to the local Volkswagen dealership and said, hey, this is a Volkswagen Rutan, which, by the way, is not a Volkswagen. It's a Chrysler, just so you know. So it's a Chrysler engine and a Volkswagen body, and apparently nobody knows how to fix that. So after multiple visits to multiple mechanics, and they're all saying the same thing of a couple
Wait, back up for a second.
Yes.
You don't work on your own vehicles?
No, sir.
Huh.
Yeah, I know.
Never would have guessed that.
I don't trust myself enough. So
I'd say give it another year or so. Your oldest son
That's close.
He's going to be out there changing the oil.
Yeah, I think that's rather close. So I wanted to kind of offload this thing. My wife said, "Can we, let's think about putting a little bit more money into it." So we made an agreement, and the numbers will be important. So I'm going to tell you the numbers. We made an agreement that we put another $1,000 into it. Okay, and at 1,000, we were done. That was our cap. So she takes it over to the mechanic who specializes in VW, and he basically says it'll be $1,180. So for $1,080, we'll get this sorted out. And so what we wanted sorted out was the fact that we were occasionally smelling exhaust inside the cabin. And right,
nothing to be alarmed about.
Nothing to worry about.
As you move your kids around town.
There was no leak in the exhaust. We had that looked at, and so then it became, well, there's you probably need to change your cabin filter. So that's a $75 fix. Okay, all right. So this guy takes it from us, and we are told it'll be $1,100, but he didn't fix the smell. He did all 4 brakes because apparently it suddenly needed all new brakes, which I don't buy into. Again, I don't know a whole lot about cars, but I know when I feel like I'm getting ripped off, and maybe all 4 brakes is a thing, but I don't think it is. And I say that because the last time I took my Jetta to the Volkswagen dealership, they were like, "Yeah, you're going to need to do your rear brakes. Your front brakes are good, but do your rear brakes next time you're here." Okay. All right, yada yada. What's the point, Chris? Here's the point. I walk into, so my wife calls me. I'm driving back from Florida, doing some filming down there, and I'm on my way back. She calls, she goes, "Hey, so they just called, the van's ready, sort of." "What do you mean, sort of?" "Yeah, they walked in, there's coolant all over the floor this morning, and so they want to replace the timing belt, the water pump, and she had one other thing. It was like $225 on just that item." And I said, "Oh," and she goes, "It's going to be $1,200 more." I said, "No, no, tell them not to touch anything. We're done. I'm so over that stupid van. And I'm tired of feeling nobody knows what's wrong with it." And I'm telling you, this is 1, 2, 3, 4 mechanics in the last 6 months that have looked at this car, and they all come up with either A, nothing's wrong, which is terrifying, or B, for another $1,500, we can have it running. It'll last you another couple of years. So I walk into this guy, and I'm like, "All right, man, I'm here to get that van. I'm just going to go ahead and pay for it. We'll come back later tonight and pick it up." And he goes, "Well, I told your wife, about $1,200, and I think you'll get another 2 years out of it." I said, "Yeah, you take this however you want, but you're about the 5th person to tell me that in recent memory, and none of you guys seem to get it right." It is like they're in on it together, all of them. So, all right. Lots of nothing. Here's the point. I'm not paying you anything. Don't fix the van. We put it on Facebook. We say it's worth about $5,000, $6,000 according to Kelly Blue Book. Needs $1,500 worth of work. We'll take $35,000. This really nice couple shows up. In full circle, if you remember, our charity of choice a couple weeks ago was the Becky Vaughn Van Fund. Mm-hmm. Her dad is John Vaughn, who was my pastor growing up. He started Hidden Treasure Christian School, which is a school for kids with special needs, because they had the house fire that injured Becky, and he needed a way to get her an education. So he turned it into a ministry. So it's flourished. They've done really well. The whole point is they show up. They have 4 kids, one of which goes to Hidden Treasure. And so I'm immediately like, yeah. So basically you need to know that I wouldn't put my wife in this with our kids. If you buy this, take it to the mechanic tomorrow and have him look at it. And they were just both somewhat perplexed, because it was almost as if I was trying to tell them not to buy the car, which I kind of was. I almost felt bad. I kid you not. He goes,
well, people aren't used to that kind of brutal honesty, though, right? Everybody's feels like they're getting swindled all the time in this world. So for somebody to go, I'm selling you this, but I'm not really recommending it. Yeah. I could see where they'd be a little confused.
Maybe. They did constantly say, "We really appreciate you being so honest." I mean, we got all the records out that showed everything we'd repaired and paid for. But here's what's great. This fan has been such a pain in the butt, man. Just a pain. So he goes, "Well, why don't we drive it?" After asking, "Does it ever overheat?" I said, "I don't think it ever overheats." I said, "It'll get hot. It will get hot, but it's always just running slightly hot, and then you get where you're going, it'll cool down. But it's not overheating, leaving us on the side of the road type stuff." He said, "Okay, all right. So let's take it around the block." I said, "Why don't you guys take it? Just take the van, drive it, talk candidly. I'll wait here." "You don't want to come with us?" "No, because I want you to be real honest with each other on the drive and decide if this is going to work for you." "Okay." Yeah, they came back. That van was smoking everywhere. I mean, there was just smoke billowing from underneath the hood. And I go, all right. Well, and he gets out, and I said, man, it is smoking. He goes, yeah. I said, well, appreciate you coming to look at it. And then he looks at me, and he's like, I mean, we're still interested. So, oh, okay. So he got down and looked at it, and I mean, maybe he's a mechanic or something, but he made a diagnosis. He said, I think you got an oil leak. You said you got your transmission done. I think they used the old seals. I think I can get in there and just tighten some new seals on. It's going to stop that oil from leaking. I said, you do you, man, but just if you're willing to buy it now, have at it. God bless you. So he said, well, what kind of discount can I get? You know, I mean, it is leaking oil. I said, I mean, what do you want? Like $200 off? He goes, sure. I said, all right. So we shook hands, and that was that. I could not believe they bought it, and I actually felt really bad that they did. And I told my wife, we're not spending any of the money. It's going in savings, and it's going to sit there just in case within the next 6 months they roll back. Hey, the whole thing's shot in every direction. But she kind of had your same reaction of, well, you told them everything that was wrong with it. I said, yes, I did. So I don't think they'll be back. But anyway.
So if you see them on the side of the road tomorrow,
yes, listen,
what are you going to do?
I'll help them. Okay. I mean, if they're on the side of the road, honest to God, if they were on the side of the road and it was a $1,200 fix, I would probably give them half that money to go have it fixed. I would feel so bad. Like, here, just take it. Because in my mind, the van's been paid for. It's almost like that's free money. I know that's not the right way to look at it. I should look at it, this is money we've earned. You know, it's kind of a payback on the $5,000, $6,000-ish we invested in fixing it over the last year. I feel like we've broken even on it. We got a nice car that worked for 4 or 5 years and then just slowly and suddenly fell apart. But anyway, okay. Highlight of the week. Our friend Ryder had a birthday, and his wife bought him a Hudson H9 for his birthday. I know my wife can hear me when we record, so I just wanted to.
I don't think you have to yell.
Oh, sorry.
I think she could just hear us anyway. Oh. She's like on the other side of that wall.
Oh, right. Okay, sorry about that. Anyway, he brought the H9 today and let us shoot it. Let me shoot it. You weren't there, but the guys at work.
Some people have to work.
It was everything I imagined it would be. It was so awesome. It was so awesome. What he and I agreed on, the consensus was, it's a hard gun to shoot because you're accustomed to compensating back and down for your recoil. So normally it pushes you back, and then your body motion, naturally, we tend to try to go back to that. So I found myself, I'd be on point, and then I'd start shooting lower. And then I was like, okay, stop acting like, you know, you're compensating for something, because the flip is so minimal, the kick is so minimal that you're just almost right back on target. So it would be interesting to get 100 to 200 rounds through it with some controlled practice. But we kind of literally, he was like, if anybody wants to shoot this, they can. And then there's this line of people all of a sudden, and but we had a really good time shooting it. So I just got to say, I know we had talked about, is it still worth $1,200? And today, yes. Yes, it is.
So you do feel like it shot a lot flatter than say, a Glock or whatever?
Oh, absolutely. I'm going to tell you this. I would put the Hudson H9 against any, and I mean any, high-grade made 9mm 1911. It shot like that.
All right.
It was so flat, so controlled. The sights took a little getting used to because it's the U-scoop. All right. And I don't normally use that, but I think once you got that down, man, you're pretty set. The only concern I have, again, not even a concern. The only thing about it is it has to be an invested gun, in the sense of that's a range gun or maybe a carry gun if you're open carrying during the day or concealed carrying during the day. I don't think you're practically getting a light on that gun as I handled it today.
Probably not.
But I don't know, maybe.
I've seen pictures with like Surefire X300s on them. They look really goofy.
It's going to be real big and heavy out front too.
Right.
So I don't know that you'd want to. But anyway.
Ryder also sent me a picture that I sent you of the striker guts of the H9, which he laid out right next to the guts of a 509. And they are eerily similar.
Almost identical.
So I don't know who Hudson hired out. If you remember, we had a conversation with Cy where he said he kind of took it as far as he could practically take the design of the gun, and then he actually hired an engineer who designed pistols in the past. I don't know if that's someone from FN, but if you look at the inside of the gun, it's probably somebody from FN.
I wonder if the 509 and the FNS would share striker assemblies.
That's a conversation he and I had, and I have both of those guns, and I've never taken apart the striker assembly on the FNS, but I might tomorrow just to find out.
Yeah, you don't really have to, though, because you don't operate.
That's a good point.
So, I'm sold on the H9. I told him, I said, man, all right. I actually did get a bite. I know I was griping about it, but I got a bite on one of my guns, and so that money is going to get set aside, and then I'm going to save, and the next one that comes through, I'm going to try and grab one. Okay. Ready? Just want to say, sincerely, thoughts and prayers to the 24 who were injured in the rampage at the school. If you didn't hear, 24 children injured as that madman barged into their school and stabbed them all. At least 24 people injured in the stabbing at Franklin Regional High School in Murraysville. This is in Westmoreland County. The attack occurred in crowded hallways just minutes before the start of school. At least 5 students critically wounded, including a boy who was on a ventilator after the knife pierced his liver, missing his heart and aorta by only millimeters. School security guard called in the stabbing at 7:13 in the morning. Witnesses say the boy with the knives at first tackled a freshman and stabbed him in the belly, then got up and ran wildly down the hall, slashing other students. Nate Moore, 15 years old, said he saw the first attack and was going to try to break it up. When the boy got up and slashed his face, he required 11 stitches. It was really fast. It felt like he hit me with a wet rag because I felt the blood splash on my face. It spurted up on my forehead. The attacker had the same expression on his face that he has every day, which was the freakiest part, Moore said. He wasn't saying anything. He didn't have any anger on his face. It was just a blank expression. KDKA has confirmed that 16-year-old Alex Reball is the suspect arrested for the stabbings. He's a sophomore at the high school in Pittsburgh. He was transported from the Murraysville Police Department by car and reportedly taken to a local hospital for superficial wounds. He's been charged with 4 counts of attempted homicide, 21 other counts in his knife rampage. I know it's all over the news, so I probably didn't even need to read it to you.
What news
are
we talking about?
This is what everybody's worked up about this week.
I don't.
No?
Wait.
Oh.
I know something with the school.
Because it was a knife.
The knife.
This actually happened 4 years ago in Pittsburgh. 4 years ago in Pittsburgh, 24 kids injured graphically when a madman with a knife went on a rampage in their school's hallways at 7 o'clock in the morning. It does not make it any less tragic, not at all, when a misguided adult, 19 years old, okay, a misguided adult at this point, walks into a school in Florida and kills 17 people and injures 14. I know I don't have to give you all the grisly details on that because you've seen it all week. In a typical fashion, everybody is blaming the gun. And so here's what tends to happen. They say, well, you can take away all the guns, but violent crime still goes up like it did in Australia, which I read a great report today. You know, violent crime in Australia increased for the decade following their gun ban. It increased. And then at that point, a decade later, they said, tell you what, we will allow a certain number of people to have guns again. And then violent crime began to drop. So it actually took 10 years and a partial lift of the ban for violent crime to stop or to begin to drop. So we say, ban all the guns, right? And then what's our normal response to that? Outside of the constitutional argument, what do people always say? Well, if you ban all guns, then you're going to ban all knives, right? We had this conversation in the car the other day. Put down the knife, save a life, whatever it is in the UK that they're screaming now.
That's working so well.
Right. So they're driving trucks into crowds and killing people.
Or throwing acid on people.
Attacking people with machetes and axes.
Bombs.
Using pressure cookers. Bad people will always find ways to kill innocent people. All right? So what I want to explain to you is the reason why I think guns there will never be a lasting ban on guns. And in fact, Australia is a great proof of that argument. But regardless of how carried away anybody gets about this, it is impossible for the world to survive as a peaceful people and there to not be guns in the equation. So drive your leftist friend crazy with this argument, but say to them, it is impossible for a peaceful world to exist and for guns to be banned. And when they say that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard, ask them why North Korea hasn't hit Japan with a nuclear bomb yet. Why hasn't Iran hit Israel with a nuclear bomb yet? Anybody?
They'll get attacked right back.
Right. So the theory is mutually assured destruction.
Sure.
Iran knows that if they hit Israel, we will hit them, as will our allies in the area, who are looking for a reason to grab that land. Bad guys of the world operate on the premise that what they have to do is prey upon the defenseless. And so if we were to give up all of our nuclear weapons, we would get hit by nuclear bombs because we wouldn't have an assured way to destroy them in a manner that is mutual to the way they destroyed us. Mutually assured destruction. And so if you look around the world and you wonder, how do all these mad dictators exist but only in a small cocoon? It's because they know that right now, if they try and come out of that cocoon, we will destroy them. We will kill them. We will kill them indiscriminately, mercilessly, and hopefully in a way that convinces all their friends they don't want to die in that manner. That's the same way I go about defending my home, right? If a guy walks in the door right now, there's multiple weapons to be grabbed, and he will be killed mercilessly and without hesitation as he forcefully tries to enter my home.
Real quick, if that happens,
yes,
I'm grabbing that guitar that's over your shoulder, and I'm going to El Kabong him.
Grab the one on the other side of you.
Okay, the other guitar.
Yeah, the one on the wall isn't really used. That was the first one I ever bought.
Okay, that one's got some sentimental value.
Yeah, the other one over there.
That one looks expensive, though.
Yeah, but Will sold it to me, so he's touched it, so
Okay.
All right.
Fair enough.
I kid. Thanks for the guitar, Will. The point is, who's disenfranchised by restrictions on guns? The elderly, the poor, minorities, and women. Okay? So if you take the guns away, you have the poor community who's not policed by the police department the way they should be because the resources just aren't there, right? The political capital isn't there for them to demand the police presence. The small women of the world who are 5 foot tall and 5'5", who cannot defend themselves, they now are more likely to be victimized. Look, a gun.
So the point you're making is that these firearms are equalizers,
right?
For people who would be less advantaged physically or whatever.
Yep, equalizers. You might hear it called a force multiplier. It is your way. So South Carolina has a law in the books. And by South Carolina law, you're allowed what's called the use of disproportionate force to defend yourself. So that means if a bad guy is coming at me with a baseball bat, I don't have to grab a baseball bat or less, right, to defend myself. I can grab anything above a baseball bat and take care of business.
I'd respect you if you did.
Right?
Just saying.
Like lightsaber battle style and kill him. I can grab my gun and shoot the guy charging me and my family with the baseball bat, and I won't go to jail for it as long as I was justified in believing reasonably that that man meant to cause me serious harm or injury or death. Okay? So the point I'm making is this idea that we can take all the guns away and the evil will stop. Yes, it's silly for the sake of, well, murder's always been illegal and rape has always been illegal, but the force multiplier is the tool that maintains the peace. Okay? People aren't peaceful because they're told to be peaceful. They're peaceful because they understand there's a consequence for their negative actions. So bad guys don't kick doors in at night. They kick them in during the day because mostly bad guys assume nobody's home in the daytime. So statistically speaking, a vast portion of home break-ins happen during the day because the bad guy understands that if I come in at night, there might be a negative consequence. He understands that you have a force multiplier and that you will destroy him as he tries to destroy you. Do you have a thought?
This has nothing to do with anything other than there's a guy that's been trying to break into houses a few blocks away from where I live.
Yeah.
But he's doing it at like 3 o'clock in the morning while people are home.
Yeah.
I don't think he's gotten the message that you shouldn't do that.
You got to come back while everybody's working.
That he's going to kick one of these doors in and somebody's going to be standing there and they're going to unload on him.
I like to think that he goes home and wonders whether he should quit his day job since that's the best time to break in. He's like, should I just give up the pizza delivery business and go full-time thief? I just don't know, man. I just don't know. Kind of tired of the grind.
I'm kind of actually shocked that this guy's trying to break into houses in the middle of the night. Just seems like a little cliche, maybe. Like, come on, man. Like, is that really what you're going to try to do?
Sometimes. I mean, there are those criminals who are only doing what they do so they get caught, so that they get the attention.
I'm assuming he's just not real bright.
Gotta be one of them. Man, that'd be a bad day, man. I mean, and it's one of those things to think about, even as we have this discussion. The world exists peacefully because guys like that who are out there to break the peace, to make people feel unsafe, will eventually be killed. He will die. He will break into the wrong house, and someone will have the ungodly experience of having to end him because he came in and God knows what he's looking to do. Who knows what he's looking to do? But the beautiful thing about it, at least in South Carolina, is I don't have to stop and assume your motives. I don't have to ask what you're doing. All I have to do is say, hey, you got to get out of my house. Hey, you're in the wrong spot. You need to leave. And if you keep coming, I don't have to stop and interpret your motivation. All I have to say is, I don't know why you're here, but I chose to stay home peacefully with my family, and you chose to come in. So sorry, buddy. I mean, God help me, it doesn't end well for him, and then the family gets to walk away clean. But anyway, as you get involved in these gun debates, please just think about the fact that the only reason peace exists at all is because the guns are there to maintain the peace. Talk about, everybody, it should be like the Wild West. Is that what you're looking for? You're looking for the Wild West, That
seems to be the debate
everybody's
right
armed. Yeah, I am. But when you think about it, when you say Wild West, what is that? Those are the unincorporated areas of the western frontier where there was no law. There was no civilization. So when the people would come together in the towns, right, and everybody's mainly armed, and they're required to carry a gun to church with them on Sundays by law in the state of Georgia, at least, then the peace was maintained because, again, the Wild West people
But Hollywood would have you believe that the Wild West is like one shootout after another.
Right.
And that was all it was saloons, whiskey, and shootouts. Right. And that was it.
Every man was judge, jury, and executioner back then.
In reality, I think it was probably a much more peaceful environment because an armed society is a polite society, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think you have this Hollywood fixation of just people getting gunned down constantly, because we've got constitutional carry up for vote again for the umpteenth year in a row in South Carolina, and that's pretty much everyone on the left's argument is, well, it's just going to turn it to the Wild West. Is that what you want?
Yes.
Okay, I'm good with that because it's not. Look at how many other states have constitutional carry or open carry.
Right.
There are not people gunning each other down in the TCBY.
Yes, there are,
for no reason.
Yep. Well, and that is kind of. Oh, sorry, punched my microphone there. That is kind of.
Mike had it coming.
Half the thing to wrap your head around is, if you want to regulate guns in a certain way, you have to agree to regulate other constitutional rights in that way. So if you can regulate a firearm by requiring a background check and then a more extensive background check, then based on the weapon, by the way, right? So that's now the new thing is, well, let's have more extensive background checks for assault rifles, quote unquote. Okay, let's give in to that and tell them, but in exchange, we're going to do background checks to vote locally and then a more extensive background check to vote on federal levels. Oh, wait a second, Christopher.
The left will love that.
It's the exact same thing.
They'll love it.
You want that? Okay. But we can now put restrictions and checks and balances on voting. And we can now put restrictions, get this, on getting married. We now get to decide who passes the right background check to go get married. We now get to decide who gets to come into the country. Isn't that interesting?
Wait a minute.
So stop with your whole, I have a constitutional right to do this, but it can be regulated heavily by the federal government at their whim because
Nancy
of a crisis.
Pelosi just turned this podcast off.
She listens. That's why she rambles like an idiot. Oh, I know this guy that does it. It'll work for me too. All right. So anyway, it is. It's an easy way to get caught up in. Well, if you ban all the guns, then you're going to ban knives. But think of it this way: what they would legitimately have to do is they would ban the size of the knives, and then eventually they'll take all the knives. And then they'll ban the size of sticks you're allowed to have on hand. And then they'll take all the sticks. And then the rocks. And they'll ban the size of the rocks. They'll take all the rocks. So stop that argument immediately and say, what you're missing the point here, because what you're assuming is that a lack of weapons is what maintains the peace. But what maintains the peace is the knowledge of the bad guy that weapons exist and may be in my possession. Mutually assured destruction. Hammer it home to your friends. Trust me. As far as I can tell, it's an airtight argument. There's no poking holes in that because, well, if we just took them all away, what? Now you're going to convince the bad guy to not be bad? Here's another thing. If these kids were genuine, which I believe some of them are, but if these kids weren't just on a wave of emotion, if these kids believe that by hitting the streets and convincing people to put down the guns will end crime, take your message to Compton. Why are they not in the middle of Compton, in the middle of Chicago? Why are they not in Baltimore? Why are they not in inner city Atlanta preaching the exact same thing and saying, everyone put your guns down and love each other. All we need is love. We got to get rid of the guns. We got to get rid of the guns. It's because they're not afraid to take on the NRA, okay? These kids aren't out there screaming about the Bloods and Crips and talking about how we're coming for you, the Bloods and the Crips. We're coming for you. They're not going to do that because those guys are criminals that have guns. But they're not afraid of getting up and bashing on the good guys with the guns because it's not the gun, it's the people. They just don't like us, okay? And then they're afraid of the actual thugs and gangsters, and they don't go after them. So, if their principle were true, if they were really convicted by principle, I say they pack it up, take it to the inner city.
There was nearly twice as many killed in Chicago last week through gun violence as there was in the school in Florida.
I wouldn't doubt it.
And that's not to disparage what happened in Florida, but it happens every holiday weekend in Chicago, and nobody gives a flying crap. So so to me, that's what invalidates their argument.
Sure.
You can puff your chest up every time one of these tragedies happen, but if you're not willing to do something about it when it literally, it's not a tragedy because it happens so frequently, and you're not willing to do something about that, I don't have time for you anymore.
The best I saw was the dad that was speaking to President Trump today, who lost his 14-year-old daughter. And he said, now is not the time to talk about gun laws. That's a debate and a battle for another day. The question today is how do we make the schools safer? And he made some really good points. If 9/11 happened and we figured out a way to make the airlines safer, then this can happen and we make the schools safer. If we can keep stadiums full of people safe, hundreds of thousands of people at a time, we can keep them safe from this. Why can we not keep our schools safe in a similar way? I agree.
That's a pretty fair argument.
Make those schools airtight, hard to get into. You got to have a badge. You got to get checked as you go in. I'm all about it. I mean, we don't have to treat them like we do on airplanes. You can bring your water in and all that, but at least we can get up there and go, okay. You don't get an AR-15 into the hallway of a school without making a scene. It just so happened nobody saw him. So the least we can do is a live video feed inside every American public school and hire someone to just sit in a room with 5 other people, however many it takes, and monitor those hallways and classrooms. Because then all it takes is, oh crap, don't run out at that fire alarm. Get on the intercom, tell everybody to lock their doors and stay in. And now we know where the shooter is, and we sneak up behind him, and we take care of the issue. Start.
I think, I drove by my high school the other day, and I noticed that it had, when I was there was a fence around, it's on a major road. There's a fence around the perimeter of the property that's no longer there. And I found that sort of odd that they've done away with some fences. And so it seems like it's fairly easy to get up to the school now.
Yeah. It's weird.
So, yeah, it's a little strange. And I just wonder why we're not, everybody wants common sense gun measures.
Reform,
and, it's like, okay, let's put up some common sense fences. Let's try that out.
Yeah.
Let's lock some doors,
Yep. I don't know. I do have a big idea that I would like everyone to consider. If I had the opportunity to tell everybody that was willing to listen, I would say, how about you pick a few teachers per hallway, you secretly train them with guns, you securely lock those guns in the classroom behind a vault door that only the teacher has the code to, maybe the principal as well, but only these select few teachers know the codes. These are teachers who have been thoroughly vetted, by the way. And then if all hell breaks loose, they have some sort of distinguished badge that nobody knows about and nobody has ever seen. But now there's a shooting, and they open that vault door. They put on this bright red, orange, green, yellow badge, and then they go do work. So the police know who the good guy is. The other teachers know who the good guys are by this badge that's showing, and they can stay tight in their rooms. And the other point is, you don't have this mass exodus of kids. Now the kids know where the safe room is. They've all been told, this is the safe room, you're going here. Why can't we build safe rooms inside these schools? Why does every floor not have a room that you go into as an airtight vault that you can get into, lock the door?
I heard a theory that, or maybe a proposal, not so much a theory, but the idea was you take teachers while they're off in the summertime, you train them at the police academy, and then they become deputized when they're on school property.
There you go.
So they're allowed to carry a firearm. They're allowed to make arrests, do investigations, whatever needs to be done on that property while they're on that property. They leave the property, they're back to being a regular citizen. They can have a CWP or whatever else. But either way, they can carry on campus. And people, it would be obviously volunteer led. I'm not saying you make every teacher into a cop. I'm pretty sure most teachers go into that field because that's what they want to do.
Sure.
They want to mold minds. They don't want to, chase down drug dealers and stuff. So You're not making them do it, but you take a volunteer force. And I would be willing to bet that if you enacted that, the more teachers that volunteered would inspire more to volunteer to be a part of it. So I think that's one of the smartest, I won't call it an answer, but an answer that I've heard.
It's an idea. And apparently we have none right now on a federal level. And how is it that it's funny? What was I watching with my son the other day? And, he was watching one of his cartoons. And he goes, here comes, I think it was Spider-Man. Yeah, it was Spider-Man. And the girl was caught in the web, and there was a car, and all the police are watching. And there's the girl up there in the car, and Spider-Man is running to save her. And all the cops are watching Spider-Man. And my poor 3-year-old son's watching it. And I said, hey, you know what to learn from this, right? The government will not save you, okay? It will take an individual with the gumption to do it. A private citizen will have to find the answer because the government has regulations. The government guys just stand there. They go, we're not allowed to climb up in that web and save that girl. No, we're going to stay right here. Spider-Man will eventually show up because that was the whole point, right? She's like hanging from the ledge and everybody's watching like, she's about to die. And then Spider-Man has to swoop in because the cops are all literally just standing there. The government will do nothing. I'm not saying all police officers. I'm just saying government as a whole is a funny, kind of analogy there. So the point is, why is it we have all these ideas? We're the people in the federal government. And I think it's firmly because they go there and they go, all right, spend your first few years fighting for this, act like you care about this, but then just understand that this is a rut. Everybody gets into the routine, and then we cash our checks, we make our millions, and
open our pockets up. Just
stop being so dogmatic. Anyway, let's fix it. Please, let's fix it. By the way, this is from MRC TV, the Media Research Center. Looking at the Australian claim, the headline from Vox that Violent crimes went down after the gun ban. The claim is simple. In 1996, after 35 people were killed in Tasmania by a man armed with an automatic rifle, Aussie politicians passed the National Firearms Agreement, which instituted mandatory gun confiscation for semi-automatic firearms, shotguns, and self-loading rifles. It also offered a nifty buyback as part of the mandate. How sweet. Thus, we get the declaration that violent crime and gun homicides, suicides went down immediately after the ban and took nearly 20% of Aussie guns off the street. Oh, after the ban took 20% of Aussie guns off the streets. The trouble is, it's not true that violent crime or even gun-related crime decreased immediately after the gun ban. This is a case of temporal manipulation to reach a desired conclusion. I don't know what any of that means. In fact, gun-related crime increased for years after 96, and the only way disputants can claim that violent crime decreased is by widening the window of a time beyond 10 years. As John Lott has correctly noted, violent crime increased immediately after the ban, and homicides and armed robberies continued the upward tick until 2000, never dropping below 1996 levels until after 2010. So they confiscated 20% of the firearms in 1996, and violent crime and homicide rose until 2010. That same year, in the state of Victoria, there was a 300% increase in homicides committed with firearms. The following year, robberies increased almost 60% in South Australia. That was 96 they're talking about. By 1999, assaults had increased in New South Wales by 20%. 2 years following the gun ban confiscation, armed robberies rose by 73%, unarmed robberies rose by 28%, kidnappings by 38%, assaults by 17%, and manslaughter was up nearly 30%. John Lott also notes that gun ownership eventually returned to per capita levels that mirrored the rates prior to the ban. All this while the ban created what one might expect to be a huge and dangerous black market for firearms in Australia. It seems many Aussies who wanted to use guns still found them, and peacefully minded people were forced to go onto the black market. All right. Anyway, guess what? After Bill Clinton's presidency inspired worried gun owners to keep and bear more arms, the per capita ownership of firearms continued to increase in the U.S. under his departure, and violent crime continued to decrease. From 2007 to 2011, the FBI's Uniform Crime Reporting stats say the number of violent crimes committed with a gun decreased by over 220,000. So, more guns per capita, less violent crime. Take the guns away, violent crime goes up and up. Remember, 300% increase in homicides committed with firearms the year Australia banned them. Okay? All right. Our VOTA of the week, unless I missed anything.
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. That's going to go to the state of Ohio.
I've been waiting on this one for a long time.
CNSnews.com. Parents in Ohio have lost custody of their 17-year-old daughter because a judge ruled that she should be allowed to receive therapy, including testosterone therapy, so that she can identify as a boy. Without commenting on the specifics of the case just outside Cincinnati, Americans can expect to see more cases like it as government officials side with transgender activists to promote a radical view of the human person and endorse entirely experimental medical procedures. At stake are not only parental rights, but the well-being of children who suffer from gender dysphoria. It goes on and on. But anyway, 17-year-old girl, the parents said no to therapy, ends up in court, and the judge says, fine, you can't have your child anymore because she wants to be a he. All right? Okay. Yes.
Good call on the VOTA this week. I'd like to give you some kudos there.
Okay, thank you.
You could have just stopped when you said that the VOTA of the week was Ohio, though.
And just leave it there?
Yeah, I mean, because Ohio. I mean, I don't know what else you got to say.
Nothing to be said. So our VOTA this week is the state of Ohio. Feel better?
Yeah, I do actually.
It's a crazy time to be alive, man, when the state will take your child because you won't allow your child to have their reproductive organs ripped off by a surgeon. I say this a lot, and I'll repeat it. For a long time, my oldest son thought he was Superman, but I refused to let him jump off the house because I knew better. And applying the logic of the state of Ohio, I should have let him jump. It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. The dumbest thing I've ever heard. All right, please remember the shop is open at feltrecoilshow.com. We got pint glasses. And Jason, if you made it this far, I missed your message on Facebook. But next time you are here, message again. I'll get you some Felt Recoil stickers. We do have stickers in the shop. Lots to choose from. Only a couple of bucks. Put an order in. We'll send some out to you. All right. And a little bit of the money you spend with us will be kicked back to the charities you see there at feltrecoilshow.com. That wraps episode number 66. Hulan's going to get to shoot the H9 before we're back next time, so we'll get his take on it and much more. Make sure you're following us on Instagram, on Facebook. Subscribe to the YouTube channel soon. Very soon we'll be doing the show every week, and it'll be broadcasted live through our YouTube channel, so find us there. All right, we'll see you next time with the Felt Recoil Podcast.